Welcome back, everyone, to another reaction video. I just got back from Vicksburg, where I led a tour. We had a fantastic time. I really enjoyed hanging out with everybody and talking history together for a couple of days. The weather wasn't the best, but we made the best of it, regardless of some rain that we dealt with. And I'm looking forward to doing it again, so be paying attention for future announcements here on the channel about upcoming tours that I'll be leading down the road. Probably here in the States, some more American Civil War battlefields. But we also have our big tours coming up. I'll be heading to Italy in just over 2 weeks for a week in Rome and Florence and Cassino and Naples. So looking forward to bringing you a lot of content from that. In the meantime, though, we're going to take a look at a new channel today. This one's called Mitsi Studio, and they use a very unique 3D graphics that they kind of put together themselves, and they tell historical tales in doing so. So I'm excited to check one of their videos out for the first time. This one's called 11 Less Evil Facts About Hitler. Now, it's important to note that when we're talking about these things, we are not in any way saying that he is somehow less evil. It's just important to note that even people who do absolutely horrible things can compartmentalize that and live very relatable, normal human lives outside of the horrible things that they're doing. So I imagine that's what we're going to be taking a look at today in this video. I'll put a link in the description. So if you like what you see from this channel, I would encourage you to check out their channel, subscribe, watch some of their other content. Let's get them all the likes and views that we possibly can. I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Elizabeth in McKean, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. Could not do it without the support of our patrons. Let's go ahead and dive into this one. Yep.
Before his rise to power in Germany, Hitler was an artist, trying to sell paintings and postcards to earn himself a living. He applied to be accepted by the Vienna Art Academy, but on the admissions exam he was told his work was lacking emotions and empathy for the human figures. Surely no pun intended there by the admissions board. Hitler became very frustrated after applying and being rejected a second time, an event that probably in later life did not contribute anything good to Hitler's overall chill factor. After the war, the few remaining art pieces of Hitler sold for relatively large amounts of money. He could have exploited these late artistic successes, was it not for World War II and a bullet to the head.
Okay, so we'll pause right there. I'll let each one of these play through, and then we'll talk a little bit about them. Yes, he was an artist. If you've seen any of his artwork, when it comes to, I mean, granted, I'm not an artist, so the bar's pretty low here as far as what I find to be talented. But I've seen some of his work, like he did Neuschwanstein Castle in Bavaria. I actually went to one of the sites of something he painted in Munich. Everybody says that it was really like his attempt at painting people that was the problem for him. But from what I've seen of his work when it comes to landscapes and buildings, I actually thought it was pretty good. And I actually have a friend who owns one of the surviving paintings of Hitler's. I don't know if he's made that public, so I won't say who it is, but interesting. Yeah, and obviously a lot of people point to the fact that him not getting into art school maybe led him down a dark path, and had he been accepted to art school, maybe none of the other stuff happens. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case, because I think even if he gets accepted to art school, when the war breaks out, World War I, he probably still joins the war and maybe ends up going down the exact same path anyway. So I'm not sure. I think maybe we overstate that a little too much, the factor that him getting rejected from art school has in playing his future life. He did love movies, American movies.
This brutal dictator was an absolute film buff, especially in the evening, making him a super binge-watcher mensch. There were many Hollywood films that he liked. King Kong, Snow White, or Snow Aryan White in his mind, and on top of that, he was also a great fan of Laurel and Hardy. If you still believe that is not weird enough, consider he was also a fan of Disney's Mickey Mouse. I guess after a hard day of work, coordinating the destruction of Europe and some occasional mass murder in between, nothing beats a good jolly mouse to keep the spirits up. This resulted with Hitler organizing his own cinema nights with his guests, binge-watching all the way into the late-night hours.
So I love the animation, first of all. They have a very unique style that's all their own, but it works. And it's a kind of a cool way to be able to tell the story and talk about history. So my understanding is, because remember, a lot of the big-time Hollywood actors did end up serving in World War II. Some of them served in like film roles, like Ronald Reagan, for example, who wasn't necessarily the biggest Hollywood actor. But he ended up narrating a lot of government films that were made. If you watch the video of George S. Patton and Jimmy Doolittle speaking at a rally in Los Angeles in 1945, it's narrated by Ronald Reagan. But my understanding is, in particular, he was a big fan of Clark Gable. And because Clark Gable actually flew some combat missions over Europe, he had given some pretty detailed instructions that if Clark Gable were to be captured, exactly where he was supposed to be brought, because he really wanted to meet him. So kind of interesting when you think about that. That's true.
Hitler is often considered to be the first national leader to advocate non-smoking. Being a heavy smoker in his early life, around 40 to 45 cigarettes a day,
Really?
quite a joke, he realized the Aryan super race could not be associated with smoking. So, Hitler made sure a nationwide non-smoking campaign was set in place to keep the German people from smoking. Understandably, you do not want to be called a Nazi, only for people to think you are a smoker. That would be awkward. They even went as far as to construct separate non-smoking rooms in their bomb shelters. What a luxury to have! Your own non-smoking bomb shelter, while the city above you is turned into one big ashtray. Priorities.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. He actually had a number of very specific things when it came to his health. A lot of people who knew him said he was also a vegetarian. But it is kind of interesting to think that in the 30s and 40s, at a time when a lot of people smoked, and this is a time before it was really fully understood the dangers to a person's health from smoking. I mean, so much so that people like King George VI in the UK, his doctors actually told him that he should smoke because it would help relax his throat and help with his stammer. So, you know, it's easy to judge people at a time back then when that was going on, but it wasn't fully understood exactly what was going on. So kind of ahead of his time. I guess it was less about everyone's health and more about just a personal preference on his part, though. This is kind of ironic when you think about it.
Another unexpected trait on our list is animal welfare. Hitler took a variety of measures to ensure animals were well protected. His own dog Blondie was loved and cuddled by his owner, with Hitler having Blondie in his bed in the Führer bunker. Very sweet, but not sweet enough to be an episode on The Dog Whisperer. To enforce better living conditions for animals, the Nazi regime made an effort to seriously restrict the hunting on animals. They also went as far as to send people who mistreated animals to concentration camps. This was during a time where they were even specifying guidelines on how to properly transport animals, a sentence that is very hard to process considering other events unfolding during that time.
Yeah, how to transport animals, you have to have guidelines, but we're going to transport people like animals. Again, it's easy to look at this and think to yourself, well, this doesn't make any sense considering what was being done to people. But we're trying to apply reason and sound judgment to a people who were doing some pretty insane things to other people at that time. So we should not expect them to have thought rationally about the very clear hypocrisy of how they were treating animals versus how they were treating human beings. This I didn't know.
Hitler liked his cakes, eclairs, and many other creamy desserts all day long. His cook made these personalized treats, decorated with swastikas, and why not? On some days, he could eat as much as 1 kilogram of chocolate pralines. I guess a diet combining sweets and prescription drugs are not going to do you a lot of good in the long run. Nevertheless, Hitler claimed, for me, sweets are the best food for the nerves. Considering how the war was eventually going, it's not weird to see how he ended up eating so much of that. During the closing stages of the war, with the Führer trapped in his underground bunker complex, one of the last things he ate before committing suicide on April the 30th, 1945, was a cake for the nerves.
So I didn't know any of that. That's kind of interesting. A lot of people have addictions to sugary sweets. Fascinating.
Huh?
Oh, this one. I don't know if this is
The River Kwai
confirmed.
March was a popular British war song, with one song variant having lyrics describing the missing, deformed and undersized testicles of the top Nazi leaders. At this point, it is safe to say that marketing the whole idea of an Aryan super race outside of Germany's borders is going to be challenging if people are singing songs about your battered ballsacks. It's a shame Britain's Got Talent was not around during that time. It would have brought us some awesome extra auditions to look at. In recent years, a medical report from Hitler's doctor confirms the rumours that the Führer was fighting a war on two fronts with just one testicle.
So, I've always understood that to be one of those rumors that we didn't really know for sure if it was true or not. So if there's a medical report, okay, maybe it is true. But it's fascinating to see how propaganda, especially in wartime, can be so persuasive that even absent real evidence, sometimes people will believe certain things. It was true with how Napoleon Bonaparte was described, again, by the British, who were really good at this kind of propaganda. To this day, a lot of people still think Napoleon was abnormally short, which he wasn't, but people say that because the propaganda perpetuated that idea over and over and over again until people believed it. The same thing was true with things going back to the Wars of the Roses and how the Tudor dynasty used Shakespeare for propaganda to talk about things like Richard III and describe him as the evil hunchback tyrant with a withered arm who murdered his nephews. And some of that was based in some truth, but that's the most effective propaganda, is when you take something that could be kind of true and you make it absolutely true in people's minds. So yeah, was there truth to this? Sure, but it's how it was spun to make him seem weak and less than manly, to use a medical condition that probably had nothing to do with his manhood in general and spin it as meaning there was something wrong with him. There's plenty wrong with him, but that wasn't one of the things.
Hitler claimed to eat healthy, but never mentioned all the sweets he ate. In hindsight, this should not really be the thing to judge him for. Near the end of his life, Hitler followed a more vegetarian diet, including a lot of greens like carrots, broccoli, tomatoes, and a lot of peas. Albert Speer noted, at the dinner table, Hitler mentioned gruesome suffering and slaughter of animals trying to dissuade his colleagues from eating meat. Again, it is hard to ignore the irony here, with Hitler lecturing people about moral standards basically on any subject whatsoever.
So Speer was a guy who was pretty close to Hitler. He's one of the few people who was really in Hitler's inner circle who's going to survive the war and not escape somewhere also. So I guess we should at least pay some heed to what he says. But I've also seen other people debate the idea that he was truly a complete vegetarian and that there weren't at least certain times that he ate meat. So what do you think about that? Let me know in the comment section below. I've kind of gone back and forth on that one. This one I've heard.
Der Führer, meaning leader, was known also as Der Furzer, meaning farter, because of his uncontrollable gases. Hitler's personal doctor, Theodor Morell, provided the Führer Furzer with medicines to counter these problems. Hitler's vigorous speeches might have been less impressive if every other sentence was interrupted by a gassy melody. Although Hitler complimented his own doctor for the treatments, multiple counterclaims were made on the pills he was getting. And after many years, the farting was still there. Combined with...
So interesting here, they're actually showing... you see his hand behind him and kind of shaking. The last known video footage we have of Hitler is when he comes out of the Führer bunker to inspect some Hitler Youth, and that's where you very, very strongly see that shake that he's got in the one hand that he's holding behind him. And Bruno Ganz, the Swiss actor who portrays him in the movie Downfall, does a tremendous job of recreating that. He was just brilliant in that role in general.
Many new health problems. For
Depends
all
on
the
who you ask.
criticism Hitler took over the years, it is hard to say anything good about the man without raising eyebrows. But, to be fair, in a few cases Hitler was outmatched in evilness by one certain individual. To be a general serving under Hitler's command was actually a better position to be in than being a general serving Stalin. You
True.
might be guessing where this is going. Yep, if you fucked up with Stalin breathing down your neck, you could be pretty sure to end up in a ditch with a skull looking like a bowling ball. In contrast, Hitler mostly just sacked his generals for being dumbasses, not executing them in mass numbers just to make a point. However, it did not make him Employer of the Month just yet. Ah, poor guy.
Yeah, and I'm sure there were people who worked for him who absolutely loved him. Of course, you didn't get that close to him unless you were a diehard believer in the same cause that he believed in. So chances are you're going to see him through some very rose-colored glasses. So we have to keep in mind that anytime we are reading sources of people who were close to him, we have to understand their biases. So someone like Albert Speer, for example, who after the war was doing his best to kind of repudiate a lot of that stuff, may have been more likely to say things that maybe were negative about Hitler, whereas others who were diehard to the end may have been singing his praises all the way up to their grave. Yes, Willy Hitler.
It is safe to say that taking over the world was not a family-run business entirely. His own nephew, William Patrick Hitler, was serving in the United States Navy from 1944 to 1947. If you think that is not awkward enough, before he fled to the US, he blackmailed his uncle for years by threatening to leak embarrassing family stories to the press. When he suspected a trap was set up for him, he fled Germany and eventually obtained US citizenship and joined the Navy afterwards. After the war, William changed his name William Patrick Hitler to William Stuart Houston, although it would have been more fitting to change it to That William Who Fucked with Hitler.
So Hitler's brother, who was Willy's dad, I think it was his half-brother, actually lived a substantial portion of his life in the UK. So there were already some divisions there between the two parts of the family. And so Willy does end up, I think, living on Long Island after World War II, after he serves in the Navy. And he did change his name. I think he had 3 sons, a couple of whom may be still alive. And last I was aware, none of those 3 sons had any children. And so at least in some ways, the line's dying out here in America. What's fascinating is how many of these people who were on the opposite side of history from the United States ended up having their families in the United States. Stalin's daughter ended up in the U.S. I've talked about this before. I've met Nikita Khrushchev's son, who became an American citizen. You have the heir to the Romanov dynasty, I believe, lives in California. Crazy stuff. Wait, what? This I didn't know.
There are multiple theories that the introduction of the sex doll has its roots going back to the Nazi era. According to some, it was the Führer himself who invented the use of sex dolls for his frontline troops, so they were less likely to contract non-Aryan transmittable diseases on their own. You know. With many German troops deployed in France, the biggest threat to the German Wehrmacht was not frontline action, but streets filled with prostitutes swinging legs around their men, turning every French town or city into one big French STD fest. This was unacceptable to Hitler, who came up with the idea to design special sex dolls, all with blue eyes and blonde hair. Difficult to swap your doll with your friends, though, if you prefer something else from time to time. Yes, life was hard for a German soldier stationed in France in 1941. In the end, the dolls were not a very big success, mostly because of the embarrassment soldiers had with carrying the dolls around. To which, duh, how weird is that? Seeing a German Wehrmacht soldier gearing up his Mauser, hand grenades, MG ammunition, and finally, his inflatable sex doll. Very superior master race kind of stuff. Eventually, the factory where these dolls were made was also targeted and bombed by the RAF.
Wait, we sent strategic bombing runs on sex doll factories? I'm wondering if we knew that's what it was, or if it was just one of those things where it's, oh, hey, a factory, let's hit it.
Destroying the entire building and taking the lives of over 200 innocent inflatables.
Innocent inflatables. Wow.
Join our community on Patreon and get your own Bad Boys in History stuff. Print your own Bad Boys in History collection.
Really?
Every month, we give you 2 STL 3D print files to print your Bad Boys in History collectibles.
That's pretty cool. I think I might have to become a patron of these guys because I really like what they do. Let's take a look at what some of their other videos are about. So they're at 653,000 subscribers. They've got 74 videos in total. Got one about World War I. We might have to do that one at some point. Life of a Gladiator, the Battle of the Atlantic, how countries fight their wars. Interesting. So these are just some of their latest. Let's look at their most popular ones. That was one of the most popular ones. Got some what else we got? How to Survive on Mars. It says they have 74 videos, but we're only looking at some of them here. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. Okay, that's because a lot of their videos are shorts. That's where most of their videos are. So they don't have that many long form. And that makes sense. I mean, it would take a lot of work to put something like this together. All right, so I really enjoyed that. I hope you did too. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Anything you'd like to add to the discussion about the topics that we talked about there. If there's another one of their videos you think we should definitely check out, let me know that. And I encourage you to check out their channel for yourself when you get the chance. So I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Kyle in Bandon, Oregon, and David in Fairfax, Virginia. Thank you both so much for your support on Patreon. Could not do it without you. We'll see you again soon. Check out some of these other videos when you get a chance.